So we continue to roll along in this OTRS Central November to Remember. I hope you guys are enjoying it so far. There's a lot more still to come in this month, so stay tuned. Before I talk about Raw this week, a couple of things. One, remember tomorrow is the hashtag Smokey Q&A. So if you're watching this video, if you've got any questions pertaining to Smokey, Deuces and Fours, Precious, Feisty, anything like that, Summer, whatever the case might be, anything pertaining to Smokey or Deuces and Fours, you want those questions answered, go ahead and go to Twitter, tweet them to the Twitter handle for the show that is in the description box down below. And like I said, that Q&A will be tomorrow. Now, as far as this week's Raw review, keep in mind last week I unveiled the triple threat kind of format where I'm only going to cover 3 major talking points of the show because most weeks that's all there is to really talk about anyways. I will occasionally squeeze in, depending on the week, 1 or 2 smaller items if I feel like it needs to be talked about, like it will be with this week, for example. So let's talk about Raw. I really liked how Raw kicked off right away with CM Punk versus Luke Harper. I really liked the way this show kicked off. It gave it kind of a high-energy feel to me right from the very beginning as I watched it this morning. And when I'm sitting there watching it, and I'm waiting for the inevitable, somebody's going to jump in, Punk's going to win via DQ, or he's going to lose due to outside interference. He actually wins the match in surprise fashion. I was kind of like, that's a little interesting. But nonetheless, after the victory, you get all chaos. You get, here comes Rowan, and then here comes, of course, Bray Wyatt, and Daniel Bryan comes out to make the save. Obviously, this is going to be one of the headline matches for Survivor Series, the Wyatt family versus Daniel Bryan, CM Punk, and probably somebody else, maybe Miz, maybe R-Truth you could throw in there, whatever the case might be. You might throw another person in there on this side, another person in there on that side. The most interesting thing of this all to me, and this made for really good television when Daniel Bryan came out to make the save, I really like how the Wyatt family, in particular Bray Wyatt, seemed to kind of get off on abuse and punishment. And in particular, the Bray Wyatt character, he laughs at this type of stuff. Like he gets sadistic, sick pleasure out of it. That makes for a really, really good and intriguing wrestling character, in my humble opinion, of which we're actually getting quite a few of those in today's WWE. You're getting some really good character concepts. Sometimes the execution from a storytelling standpoint, not so much. But you have the potential for a nice storytelling element here. And when you had the big camera shot of the crowd going, yes, 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 and you've got CM Punk and Daniel Bryan there, you're not only getting the crowd behind these two guys for their feud with the Wyatt family, but you're also setting up the stage for a potential WrestleMania match between Daniel Bryan and CM Punk where you could just go with those two guys being faces. You could do babyface versus babyface, biggest show of the year, let's see what happens type of deal. Perhaps the most intriguing thing of all to me was that afterwards when both Punk and Bryan were interviewed, they basically apparently admitted, and this is what I love in WWE, Punk goes, I didn't realize anybody else had a problem with the Wyatt family. Daniel Bryan, well, I guess somebody else has a problem with the Wyatt family. So they're telling you that they're not watching the product. That's awesome. But it did kick off this show right in a big way. For those of you that were unaware, let me educate you unwashed masses. The Big Show has filed a very, very large, in fact, you may say the world's largest lawsuit against the WWE for, among other things, defamation of character, slander, providing him with unitards that are at least 2 sizes too small, so many different things. They have caused my client a lot of damage, and he is going to bring the WWE to its knees, period. I want to quickly point out a couple of things that aren't really big talking points, but I felt like on this week's Raw they need to be mentioned. Number one, you had Biggie Langston win the popular vote on the WWE app in big fashion over, I believe, The Miz and Dolph Ziggler. He got like 75% of the vote. What does that tell you about The Miz and Dolph Ziggler's babyfaces? Big E got 75% of the vote to face Randall Keith Orton. That means people like Big E Langston. They're starting to get behind him. You can sit there and talk about, the rigged vote and everything else. Yeah, but usually they wouldn't rig it that much to have Big E get 75% of the vote. And this was a good spot here for him. This was a big spot for him. And I don't think he did a bad job against Randall Keith Orton. He's not of the class of a Randall Keith Orton. In no way does he have any business beating Randall Keith Orton, but I thought they went out there and had a relatively productive match for both parties involved. Orton beats a big monster babyface, and Big E Langston gets elevated a little bit by showing that he could actually hang with the WWE champion. You also got the return on this show of Tyson Kidd when him and Natalya faced off with Fandango and Summer Rae. Summer Rae's a decent talent in the ring. I've been impressed so far. Natalya, she's Natalya. Fandango, I still think is an interesting character concept. Again, when I talk about really good character concepts, sometimes with maybe questionable execution. But I look at Tyson Kidd here. And, in the show, you had Dolph Ziggler versus Curtis Axel. And, I don't really mean this as any offense to like a Dolph Ziggler or any Dolph Ziggler fans. But I'm kind of over Dolph Ziggler for the time being. Not because of babyface or being a heel, whichever one, it doesn't matter. I just kind of over him a little bit. And, I think instead of having him feud maybe with Curtis Axel or having like a Biggie Langston feud with the Curtis Axel, I look at Tyson Kidd and I'm like, you know what? If you're pushing and featuring all of these damn divas on your show every week because of the television show Total Divas, why can't Tyson Kidd get a decent push? And why not have him appear on the show as, the Intercontinental Champion? I realize sometimes this stuff is recorded a little bit in the back, but it would make for interesting television to see how Tyson Kidd handles business and some of the pressures he goes through being an Intercontinental Champion. And frankly, I think Tyson Kidd has been a bit misused and underutilized by the company, and I think it's time, now that he's back, he's been gone a period of time, fans really like him, give him a nice babyface push and let's see what happens with him. For those of you that were unaware, let me educate you unwashed masses. The Big Show has filed a very, very large, in fact, you may say the world's largest lawsuit against the WWE for, among other things, defamation of character, slander, providing him with unitards that are at least 2 sizes too small, so many different things. They have caused my client a lot of damage, and he is going to bring the WWE to its knees, period. Now, clearly, the match of the night, and to me, one of the best matches on Raw this year, was a 6-man tag with the Real Americans and Sandow versus Cena and the Rhodes Brothers. This match was really good, but in particular, that last 3 to 4 minutes, that finishing sequence was outstanding. And all the times we can sit there and talk about WWE and we can knock this or we can knock that, and sometimes legitimately so, there are also certain things that the WWE seems to get more right more of the time than, let's say, a TNA or an ROH. And one of those things are proper and appropriate finishing sequences to match, such as in the 6-man tag. Now, a lot of times you get 6 or 8-man tags on Raw or SmackDown. They tend to be better matches, and tag matches in general. I'm glad the WWE is discovering again that tag team wrestling could be good for their product because people like tag team wrestling. It has its own built-in drama, in the actual match structure itself. But this match was really damn good. When you talk about guys over 40 that actually deserve to be featured and deserve to be pushed at least to some level, Goldust being a tag team champion, it's the right thing to do for business right now, and he deserves it because he's lost some weight. He looks like he's in great shape. He looks like he's 25. I mean, he's in his 40s, and he looks like he did 15, 20 years ago. I mean, he looks incredible, and he's doing a great job. And he's putting on a great show, and he's doing some great work in the ring. Those are the type of individuals that deserve to be pushed. He's not being pushed down your throat as a world champion or a WWE champion or a #1 contender for that type of stuff. He's got a place on the card, and he's doing the most he can with that place on the card. And at the same time, he's elevating the profile of his half-brother, Cody Rhodes, a little bit. And the best thing I liked about this match, besides the awesome finishing sequence of the last few minutes, is the fact that you've got the opportunity to have Cena get the pinfall here, which he doesn't fucking need. You give the pinfall to Goldust again. You give it to Goldust. That was a good booking decision. Cena doesn't need it. He could be a part of the winning team. This match shouldn't be as much just about him. You're trying to plug maybe a Sandow feud or an ADR feud or maybe a triple threat match at Survivor Series. Now, that's fine. That's fine. But it wasn't so overwhelmingly all about Cena in this match, and that's what I really liked here, especially with Goldust getting the pin. And, the crowd enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. And you could almost kind of tell that the wrestlers themselves actually enjoyed it. If you got at least one match, even somewhat like this, on every single Raw, imagine how much better it would be to digest this product on a week-in, week-out basis without having to rely on the greats of the Breakfast Club like Cena and Orton and Triple H and then eventually returning Sheamus to have to carry the load like they so often do so well. And then we get to what ended up being the closing of the show. And in case you didn't know, Big Show, the world's largest athlete, had the world's largest lawsuit against WWE. Just in case you didn't know, I wanted to fill you in on that. Now, This obviously was a storyline that was being set up throughout the whole course of the night. It's a storyline that involves Randy Orton and Triple H. You really expected to be featured this much? Get the hell out of here. Come on, you know better. That's not good for business. This is. Alright, so apparently the Big Show now has his job back because the board of directors have told Stephanie and Triple H that they need to settle this, need to settle it out of court before it gets too ugly. So Big Show now has his job back. I like the interaction of him and Triple H in this segment. I also like the way that Stephanie and Triple H, like one played off of the other really, really well here, like a husband and wife. Triple H is getting out of control. Stephanie's got to step in. Then Stephanie starts to lose control, and God has to step in, as God so often has to help save the day. Big Show getting up on the ramp and getting Triple H to repeatedly say that he's got his match at Survivor Series against Randall Keith Orton for the WWE title. That was good. You know, the whole Shield thing, I was actually a little bit surprised, frankly, to see the Shield involved in this segment because I thought they were going to start to transition away from him, but apparently not yet. So you get the whole beatdown of Big Show and everything else because you have this big 4-on-1 handicap match. Okay. Now, the biggest surprise of this whole segment to me, and not necessarily a bad surprise, is as this handicap match is going on, Kane's music hits, and here comes Glenn Jacobs walking out in a fucking suit. This is outstanding. No, this is not the same to me as 10 years ago having Kane unmasked and then still trying to dress him up as the devil's favorite demon. Now he's corporate Kane. He is Glenn Jacobs. I hope they give him a mic next week and he goes off on a libertarian rant talking about abolishing the IRS and ending the Federal Reserve. That'll get my dick hard a little bit hearing that type of shit. Outstanding. You know, it's one thing to do slight character tweaks. It's another thing when you want to dramatically depart from a character in the way it's been for a long time. You go to the complete opposite route, and when in doubt, you want to heal him out. You put a suit on him. It gets the job done. I'm a huge fucking fan of the concept of Kane walking around in a damn suit and being corporate. Fuck the fire gimmick. Fuck this. Fuck that. This is something different. This is something that is very fresh to me. It really is. You know, I'm sure at some point this is setting up for a feud down the road, maybe a WrestleMania match between Kane and Big Show, and that is what it is, and we'll take it for what it is at that time if that's where they're going. But it is something different. Kane in a fucking suit. They need to just stop calling him Kane and just call him Glenn Jacobs. That's what they should do. If they totally want to evolve and change his character, rip it off from TNA a little bit, God forbid. Where you took Abyss, you dressed him up as a common man, you made him Joseph Park. Well, you could do the same thing here with Kane. You're dressing him up in a freaking business suit. Now you can sit there and just call him by his real name. Call him Glenn Jacobs. Yeah, I'd be down with that. Why not? So as far as Big Show versus Randall Keith Orton at Survivor Series, to me it kind of is what it is. The way this segment played out, again, made for relatively good television and made for an entertaining watch for the live event audience. Now, I know during Monday Night Football season, like I didn't actually watch Raw live last night. I watched the Bears-Packers game instead. Part of the reason maybe I'm in such a damn good mood. I waited to watch Raw until early this morning. So maybe the ratings aren't great on a week-in, week-out basis. Maybe your pay-per-view buys are a little suspect. But if you continue to entertain your live event audience the way you have been recently, and you get them this involved and this invested in the show, and they become that excited about the show week in and week out, you're going to be just fine as a company, even if some of these other peripheral numbers suggest that you're struggling. Because ultimately, even though it's a television-driven world now in professional wrestling, you still have to please the live event audience. And that still fundamentally is the most important thing. Because even if you're playing to the cameras and this and that, you still first and foremost are feeding off of, working off of, and playing to that live event audience. And these type of shows here, I think, make it easier for a live event audience to enjoy a freaking 3-hour Raw. And it does make it a little bit easier for me to watch a 3-hour Raw. You know, the show wasn't perfect this week, but it did more than enough to get me excited about Survivor Series. And let's face it, a lot of you out there right now, you know goddamn good and well, you saw Daniel Bryan, you saw CM Punk in the ring at the same time, you see the Wyatt family, and you're thinking to yourself two things, oh my god, they're going to have a tag match at Survivor Series. It's going to be the best motherfucking wrestling match in the world. Until you start thinking about the other thing. You're like, oh my God, that was the big tease. That was the big tease. They rubbed my scrotatalia region. Oh my God, Daniel Bryan versus CM Punk at WrestleMania in a 30-minute Iron Man match or 2 out of 3 Falls match is going to be the best.